So Final Fantasy Souls is a real thing. During Square Enix's E3 showcase, they unveiled Stranger of Paradise Final Fantasy Origins, a Soul-type action RPG developed by Koei Tecmo's Neo team, Team Ninja. The game's reveal was met with utter chaos. Due to the over-edgy and bland character design, as well as its visuals looking on par with something from the PlayStation 3 era. To put the cherry on top, Square dropped the trial version of the game hours after the show, only to be met with even more chaos. An error message saying that the game's data was corrupted, which meant the game was unplayable. I seriously don't know how this wasn't proof-checked before it was released, but I have to say, A+ marketing strat with the whole chaos theme. And yes, I understand, I'm saying chaos as frequently as it was mentioned in the trailer. That's the joke. A little over a day later, and a patch was released to finally allow us into the doors of Chaos's humble abode. Now, minus all the top-tier memes that spawned because of this game, no, seriously, it's absolutely apparent that this is the most fun gamers have had in a while towards video game memes. This is the content I have so desired. And aside from the strange character designs, cringy dialogue, and muddy-looking visuals, this was certainly the highlight for me from Square's show. I guess there wasn't exactly steep competition this year, but the idea of a Final Fantasy Souls type is actually kind of neat, especially if it is being helmed by the folks who are responsible for Neo. This game was actually rumored, or more so now that we know it's real, leaked some weeks ago, explaining that a Final Fantasy game based in the universe of the very first game that will use Neo's template is currently in the works. Bloodborne, along with Neo, are the only Souls games I've personally been able to click with, and due to Neo's fast-paced gameplay and numerous RPG elements, this got me excited to see how Team Ninja can translate that to make it work with Final Fantasy. Now, not everyone is going to be on board with the idea of a Souls-type Final Fantasy. These games aren't for everyone due to being known for their steep difficulty curves and generally forcing the player to die and die again in order to properly learn attack patterns and give a hard sense of achievement. Keeping in mind that this isn't a major installment for the franchise, but rather considered a spin-off, I applaud Square Enix for taking a risk to try something new with the series, especially if it's handled by a team that know what they're doing when it comes to these kind of games. Now, before I talk about the meat and potatoes, it should be known that Stranger of Paradise is due to release sometime in 2022, and this is a small trial of the game with the intention to garner feedback from the players in order to steer towards what needs to be worked on. Team Ninja ended up doing a similar thing with Neo quite some time before release, and the feedback proved extremely beneficial as the end product turned out pretty great. Because we're still quite some ways off release, yet we have a demo, it's likely that the project is currently in an alpha state, because my god, yes, there are things here that definitely need scrubbing. But with all that being said, I'm thoroughly excited for Final Fantasy Origin, and I think there's some really, really good potential here. To begin with, this Final Fantasy entry is a lot darker than previous. Due to being a Souls type, this kind of goes hand in hand, though there's an issue here with the small story segments that we got to see that just comes across as edgelord cringe. The game seems to be taking itself perhaps a little too seriously. While the battle quotes all fit fine for the theme of what the game's going for, my god, the dialogue can be hard to swallow. Basically, we play as Jack, who's out to kill Chaos, the main antagonist of the very first Final Fantasy. This man's only one true desire is to make sure this dude is wiped from the face of the earth. Man doesn't care about no woman vacation in the Maldives, or even his appearance, apparently. He's got a full-blown fetish with killing Chaos. This is made overly apparent within the reveal trailer and is perhaps reiterated a little too much. It's the way Jack's goal is projected that just comes across chokingly over-edgy, like, bro, we get it, you're pissed, which probably indicates that this character at some stage fell victim to Chaos. Jack's accompanied by two buddies, Ash and Jed, basically Prompto V2, and well, I ain't got anything for Ash. I actually kind of dig this character as he did the least talking out of the bunch, who are all warriors of light. Now, although I don't know diddly squat about the original Final Fantasy, the warriors of light are chosen adventurers who are to seek out evil and eradicate it. Pretty straightforward. The interesting thing here is, though Nomura is on the character design for this project and is obviously known for some of the most iconic character designs in the industry, how in the baboon's banana did he come up with this? The original Warrior of Light has all of the to-be-expected Final Fantasy tropes, but this is just completely bland and very uninspired. Jed and Ash look just fine, but Jack looks like he's come straight out of the Final Fantasy 15 Comrades character creator. I mean, hello! I think in this day and age we're past the whole tactic of having to make the main protagonist a strong, bulky, macho menace. A similar thing happened with the original release of Nier, that for the West, the character design of the main protagonist was completely redesigned, in the hopes that it would appeal more to the overseas audience. It wasn't until recently that we got the true original design of a younger Nier, the one that was featured in the original Japanese version. Now, I understand that the design likely revolves around the game being a lot darker, and that the character is fully customizable when it comes to gear and equipment, but I honestly think that Nomura could have done a bit more to make the Warrior of Light main protag look a bit more Final Fantasy, while maintaining a darker feel to the design. The other option here is that they could have gone with creating your own character to build more immersion for the player in this darker setting, similar to what Team Ninja did with Nioh 2. In case you haven't noticed too, we're gonna talk about the bad junk first, then end off with the good food. Trust me, there is actually some positives here. The visuals should be talked about. I'm gonna be honest, the overall look of the game just isn't that good. The game's look feels dated, like really dated, almost like you've somehow time-traveled back to the late 2000s and playing a mature PlayStation 3 action game. The color palette is mostly all blacks, grey, and dark greens from the one environment we've seen, and has an overall muddy feel to it. Now, of course, this is only one level, though I find it kind of strange that even in the trailer, it only featured scenes of what's shown off in the demo. I'm sure Team Ninja have developed other areas at this stage, with the release to be in 2022, so why was this particular level the only thing shown? The character and enemy models look fine, but still feel a tad bland. Regardless of which though, this is an early version of the game, so I'd expect the visuals to receive some major touch-ups by final release. I get that it's trying for the darker tone, but in the way that something like Dark Souls or Bloodborne captured that feeling perfectly, it feels somewhat completely missed here in Origins, only to project something from a game more than a decade ago. Things like particle effects all look fairly decent, as well as the gear designs that we've seen so far, capturing that Final Fantasy feel, while also giving a darker tone to which, those are all pretty good. I only hope though that in regards to level design, the end product won't just focus on dark, airy castle and dungeon environments with dull color palettes, but have a nice sense of variety, as Final Fantasy I's world has plenty of biomes that Team Ninja could explore. The performance of the trial can be a bit of a mess sometimes, with frames stuttering out the ass when coming into wide open spaces or when there's quite a few enemies on screen. Seriously, there are Windows 98 PCs out there that have 13 Trojan horse viruses that can be more stable than this. My experience was played on performance mode, as there's options, but even so, the frame rate, while generally staying around 60, just isn't stable here. Again, this is an alpha, and issues like this should be fixed by release. I do want to say though that my smoothest run through of the game was when I was recording the demo, so I can't actually show you too many instances of the game stuttering. I was a little bit taken back when I was recording this, but more so than not, I did come across stuttering while playing the demo. As I said, stuff like this should be fixed by final release. So moving over to the positive Pete's, starting with the music. Final Fantasy has always been known for its pretty top tier scores and sounds, and Stranger of Paradise is no exception, though has a bit of a different feel, which totally makes sense. The score here is being composed by Naoki Mizuta, who's previously worked on a numerous amount of other Final Fantasy titles, from the main title theme, which I feel perfectly sets the tone and atmosphere for what the game is trying to do, with it having that traditional Final Fantasy main theme, but with more of a sad loss of hope type vibe. It really helps support the darker feeling that the game is trying to encompass. The in-game music, while the field theme is just okay, it's the battle themes that are pretty spot on. The game has the to-be-expected orchestral sounds going on, but with an interesting tie-in of EDM. I'm sure that not everyone is going to be a fan of this, but because this installment is heavily action-orientated, I feel like it helps with the flow of the action in hand, and helps give the feeling of intensity to how brutal the combat can be. The gameplay, however, is where this game's main potential lies. As I was saying before, Stranger of Paradise uses the Neo template, and you can tell this straight from the get-go if you've played Neo before. The movement of the character in combat feels instantly recognizable. The game is essentially Neo, but with not just a Final Fantasy skin on top, but with a lot of Final Fantasy flavor intertwined. To start, this is a Souls game, meaning that anything here has the potential to kill you, even the smallest of goblin. Damage values are high, learning attack patterns are crucial, and dying means you're going back to the last cube you activated, which is this game's bonfire, lantern, or shrine. This isn't a Kingdom Hearts type action RPG, nor is it a Devil May Cry Bayonetta clone. This is certainly a Souls type. You have all of the Souls tropes here, like locking on, evading left, right, forward, or back, blocking, shortcuts, cubes, which I said work like bonfires, which will reset all killed enemies in the area. If you've played any Souls games, the basics of what you expect are here. This version of Souls, however, is a little bit more forgiving than most others. There are different difficulty settings: easy, normal, and hard. My experience was on normal, but tried easy to see what it was like. It still retains difficulty in areas, but I'd suggest that if Souls types aren't your thing, easy would probably be the go-to. Although I know the one difficulty thing for Souls games is part of the ingrained DNA of what makes these games tick, I'm also a believer in options. Because this is a Final Fantasy game, the key demographic here is going to be Final Fantasy fans. I think it was a smart move to add options towards difficulty to make it a little bit more accessible for the majority. Also, when you die, you don't lose any XP like you normally would, as there's no XP gathering per se that requires you to return to the cube in order to spend, meaning that you don't have to return back to where you last died in order to collect what you lost. Because this is based off of a traditional Final Fantasy game, the job system is in place. The demo has 3 types to try: Swordsman, Mage, and Lancer, which all pertain to using different weapons and abilities as you'd expect. Swordsman can use massive greatswords with high damage melee abilities. The mage uses mace weapons and a shield, while being able to utilize black magics like fire, thunder, blizzard, water, etc., as well as use magic-based melee abilities, and the Lancer uses polearms for greater reach and AoE type melee abilities, great for when surrounded. There are also 3 advanced jobs here too, which you'll unlock as you level up the job you're using. These are Warrior, Black Mage, and Dragoon. Depending on what job you're using when killing enemies, you'll earn XP for that specific job, which when increased in level unlocks a job point. These points are spent in the job trees that will earn you new passive or active abilities or simple stat enhancements for when equipped with that specific job. At the bottom of the tree unlocks the advanced version of that particular job, which will then open up a new tree that will allow you to acquire a new set of abilities and stats. As I was saying, you don't have to return to the cube to spend XP here. Rather, you can do it on the go straight from the menu. I found that XP gains were a little high, but I'm assuming that this is intentional for the demo so that players can try a numerous amount of abilities for each job. There's no stamina bar here either, so you're free to attack, dodge, and sprint with no limits. There is, however, a break gauge which works in similar fashion to Sekiro's, that as you take continuous hits, the gauge depletes. If it reaches 0, your guard is broken, you're left open to be attacked for a few seconds, and your gathered MP bars deplete, which are used to utilize abilities. You'll start with 2 MP bars, that's the standard, but as you progress and kill enemies, the bars will increase, allowing you to pull off more abilities. You're able to use a standard guard that can parry if you time it just right, but there's also a dedicated separate parry button of sorts, known as Soul Break. If you press circle just at the right time, you'll ignore damage, so long as it isn't an unblockable attack, and you'll restore a large amount of MP and quickly increase the number of bars. Keeping in mind that if you die, you'll lose the number of bars, but you can't have any less than 2. The Soul Break mechanic is actually pretty neat and is something that makes Origins stand out in amongst the rest of the other Soul games. If an enemy guard is completely broken, the circle prompt will appear over them, causing Jack to pull off a brutal execution animation that's different for every single baddie. Think of Bloodborne's visceral attacks or Dark Souls ripostes. Also, using Soul Break against enemy attacks that are in purple mean that you're able to steal that ability to use against them or stock for later on. Again though, if you die, any stolen abilities that you're stocking will be lost. The gearing system works just as it did in Neo, so you're able to change headpieces, chest, pants, boots, gloves, etc. that all come with individual main stats and include their own randomized bonuses. Neo worked a little bit like a looter to a degree, so you'll be picking up a lot of different gear here. All of the gear actually changes the appearance of Jack too, so you'll constantly be customizing him. You are able to switch between 2 jobs at any time during gameplay by pressing triangle, and the gear that you had equipped for that job you switch to will automatically be equipped in gameplay as well. Switching between 2 jobs on the fly, I believe this system is just really neat as it allows you to use a wide range of abilities in combat without ever having to go into a menu. The ability system is tied to combos and are activated by pressing R2. Pressing R1, which is the standard attack button, just once, then following up with R2 will use a specific move you have assigned to it. Or then pressing R1 twice in a row, then following up with R2 will perform something else, and so on and so forth. Not every ability can be assigned to each combo slot, but the way in which the attacking system all flows together in this game is a lot of fun and is quite unique. It really does make this game stand out in amongst the bunch. Just like any Final Fantasy, you do have party members, Jed and Ash. However, I found that they're, well, for the most part, completely useless. Yes, they'll attack enemies and every so often gain aggro so that you're not being focused, but most of the time I found them to work only good as meat shields. You're not able to issue them commands or change any equipment for them. I'm sure in the final product, the AI for party members will be better because this really does need some work, but I'd like to see you being able to at least issue commands, change their behavior in combat, and change their equipped weapons that could then change what ability commands you could issue. This is a Final Fantasy game after all, so if I wanted the option to equip Jed with, let's say, white-based magic spells, as an example to then heal me or remove status effects in combat, I think that should be something you can do. All around, I think this game has a lot of potential, but there are quite a lot of things that need fine-tuning and to be worked on. The gameplay here is what makes it at the moment, and already, even though it has that Neo DNA, With the Final Fantasy layers on top, it really stands out in amongst the numerous other Souls games we have today. I think that Team Ninja still have quite some ways to go, and I'd expect we probably won't see this until late 2022 or even perhaps 23. However, I just want them to take their time with it and take the constructive criticism that players are handing out at the moment. If they do so, this really could end up being something rather quite unique. However guys, that is my little sort of early review, I guess, of Stranger of Paradise. I really enjoyed it, but again, yeah, there's a lot to be worked on. In the comment section down below, please share your thoughts and opinions about the Final Fantasy Souls type. I'd love to know what you guys think. However dudes, I'm Cynical, hopefully you're having a fantastic day, and I'll catch you guys in the next one. Peace.